So a new season of the NKFL is upon us, and I'm playing in the Gold Alpha Division. So I wanted to start with a video talking about my gut chart, which is my method of analysis for Hexads. And this is the method that I'll be using to prepare for all my matches this season. My first match is tomorrow, or I guess I'm publishing this tomorrow, so it should be later today, versus Vargast. So come by my Twitch channel at, I think it's 9 p.m. Central Time, and watch that live. And I'll also be uploading my matches to YouTube this season. So the gut chart, I've been using it for 2 seasons now. The basic component of the gut chart is a 6x6 table in Excel where you have your decks on one side or on the left, and you have your opponent's decks on the top. And then that gives you a grid where you have a square for each matchup in the Hexad. And in the beginning, what I would do is I would split those squares in half, and in each side of the square, I would put the cards from each deck that I thought were good against the other deck. And then you would get a feeling for which deck has better cards versus the other deck in it. And from there you could decide if that matchup was favorable or not. And then I realized that generally I was using a set of questions to identify what those cards were, and that made me think that it would be better just to explicitly put those questions in each of the boxes so that I could fill out the cards underneath them. And in the beginning I didn't use colors, but I think I think the chart really, and then I realized that really what you are doing with those questions and card searches is trying to determine if you actually want to play that matchup or not. So in the moment of deciding bans, the cards are less relevant than just your general feeling towards the matchup. So what I ended up started doing was color coding each of the boxes with either red, which means that I don't want to play that matchup, yellow, which means that I'm willing to play that matchup, or green, which means that I would prefer to play that matchup. And these colors are kind of relative, but you could also see it as being like green as being 65-35 favorable to you, and then or above. Yellow being, around 60-40 to 50-50, so around an even matchup in either direction, and red being a 35 to 65 matchup in the opponent's favor. So eventually, what this led to is just a grid, and I'm keeping these questions for each of my decks in mind, but I am just looking to fill out each box with a general favorability rating. And what this ends up giving you is a pretty clear idea of which decks are actually good against your entire Hexad, or which decks are good against portions of your Hexad. A straightforward way of looking at this is the opponent's deck that you want to avoid the most would be the deck that you want to ban the first. And the deck that you have that has many favorable matchups against the opponents is a deck that you would want to save. I think this gives you a good mindset for approaching Hexad matchups, because it can be really easy to just look at the SAS values and say, oh well, this is the highest SAS deck, so it's going to be the best against my Hexad overall, which isn't necessarily true. because you can have decks that have a good matchup against your opponent's best deck, or I guess your opponent's best theoretical best deck. So this has helped me snipe out matchups that I think I normally would have ignored without using the charting method. Or I think my best example is when I was playing versus Linusu. He has a highly rated Worlds Collide deck that I felt actually a bunch of my decks had a favorable matchup into, and so I did not ban that deck and was able to get a win versus it.